So much discussion has been had about Biden's many, many pardons, and Bo has covered this on our main channel pretty extensively. But I wanted to focus on just one case because it is so egregious as to sort of leave me in disbelief at it even happening in the first place. So here is the Washington Free Beacon publishing an article titled "Black Widow Who Murdered Three Ex-Lovers Freed in Biden's Historic Clemency Spree." So, obviously, much has been said about, well, Biden's only pardoning non-violent criminals, so it's sort of okay, according to the people who want to excuse it. However, how on earth did this get through? A Maryland woman dubbed the Black Widow for murdering two husbands and a boyfriend for insurance money is now free after President Joe Biden commuted her 40-year prison sentence, undercutting the White House's claims that Biden released only non-violent offenders in a clemency bonanza last week. So first of all, imagine being the family members of one of the two murdered husbands and boyfriend that were all killed, not even for, out of a crime of passion, or, they weren't being necessarily abusive as far as I'm aware from what I've read from the article. It was for money, for insurance money. And how someone can do such an evil thing in the first place, I find it very difficult to get my head around. But then how Joe Biden could pardon someone who did this, which to my mind is one of the most evil crimes you could do. And, the only way I could think of it being more evil if it was more people or children, right? And so, how have we got to this point? Among the 1,500 federal convicts granted clemency was Josephine Virginia Gray, who was sentenced to 40 years in prison in 2002 for insurance fraud schemes connected to the murders of three men between 1974 and 1996. Gray was resentenced to the same amount of time again in 2006 following a series of appeals. Gray, who collected $165,000 from three insurance settlements, was charged with murder by the Maryland state authorities, but ultimately convicted in a federal court in 2002 for insurance fraud for violating what's known as the Slayer's Rule, which prohibits killers from receiving inheritance and insurance proceeds from their victims' deaths. Which, to my mind, is perfectly reasonable. You shouldn't be given a financial incentive to kill innocent people. Witnesses at Gray's various trials accused her of using intimidation tactics, as if that's not, beneath her, including threats of voodoo. We may be seeing why Biden might want to pardon them. Who is a practitioner of voodoo? To coerce them into remaining silent. It was the witchcraft, mostly. Lenron Goody, the brother of Gray's third victim, told the Washington Post in 2002. You're starting to get a little bit of a picture here, aren't you? Gray did not face a murder trial in a state court after Maryland state authorities said her hefty federal sentence ensures she will die in prison. I think dying in prison is probably too good for her, to be honest. The COVID-19 pandemic allowed Gray and the rest of the Biden clemency recipients to serve out their sentences in home confinement. Now Biden has freed Gray altogether in what the White House called the largest single-day grant of clemency in modern history. Biden, in order to correct historical injustices, granted clemency to those convicted of non-violent crimes who were sentenced under outdated laws, policies, and practices that left them with longer sentences than if the individuals were sentenced today. But Gray's body count puts the lie to Biden's claim that they are all non-violent offenders. Sorry, that's written slightly strange. I can't get my words out either. According to a former federal prosecutor who handled her case. And then there's a man saying rude words here, James Trusty, with his trusty P word there, who prosecuted Gray as assistant U.S. attorney in Greenbelt, told Washington Free Beacon. This doesn't feel like a rule of law moment for the Biden administration, said Trusty, who said he learned of Gray's commuted sentence after receiving a notification of Biden's actions through an alert on the court docket for Gray's case. Yeah, it's insane to me that this has happened, but we know why it's happened. I mean, who practices voodoo? Indeed, Biden faces intense blowback over his selection of pardoning and clemency recipients. Over the past few weeks, Biden pardoned his son Hunter. Yes, yes, yes. So it's carrying on with a pardoning spree. And there are multiple cases here, just to reiterate some of them ever so briefly. Obviously, his son Hunter, who, amongst drug charges and prostitution charges, potential charges, also faced federal gun charges because he was a convicted felon who at one point owned a firearm and also disposed of it in a bin, or in the trash, I suppose I should say. And that's obviously a very dangerous thing to do, as well as the fact that around the time that Joe pardoned Hunter, he also talked about introducing gun control. Like the irony here. One rule for me and another for thee. He also pardoned a judge who was seemingly paid for sending a bunch of innocent juveniles to prison, a private prison where they make money off of forced labour, which is effectively just enslaving children for your own financial gain, and a bunch of other people as well. And so obviously not a moral thing to do. Obviously, we know why Biden's pardoned this person. There's certainly no nice person, are they? And yes, this, I think, it epitomises just how willingly immoral the Biden administration, as well as the Democratic Party as a whole, is willing to be to score political points. And pardoning a triple murderer simply because of the nature of who she is on, a form, apparently is good enough these days.